Hello and good evening, listeners. Welcome to our weekly English program, Kaleidoscope. In our last program, we had broadcast the first part of an interview with children's book writer Deepak Dalal. Today, in our program, Kaleidoscope, we have the second and final part of this interview, an interview with Deepak Dalal, a writer, traveler, and naturalist who has since 1998 given young Indian readers a brilliant portrayal of our nation's biodiversity. In a fast-paced adventure story revolving around two teenagers, Vikram and Aditya. Deepak Dalal is as much an adventurer himself as his central characters. He can often be found trekking the length and breadth of the country. Even the Sahyadri Hills of Pune are a short journey from his home. Opening up about his books and personal life. Here, the second and final part of this interview. Over to Gaurav Shimpi.
So when this first book came out, Lakshadweep Adventure, how was the response at that time in 98?
It was muted, but those who read it, you see what happens, we have this problem in India where we have these amazing international books. I mean, they're brought out beautifully and they're really wonderful stories.
Yes.
In India, we bring them, in those days at least, we bring them, it's all changed now.
Yes.
But in those days, we bring out ordinary copies of books because our print runs 1,000, 2,000, you know, and then people don't even display them well. And they look nothing like compared to the other books. And very often in those days, half the publishing was done haphazard, without really looking into it, no real proofreading. So people didn't pick up Indian books.
Yes.
Nowadays, of course, we're in a much better situation where we have good publishers, the great work coming out. So children are picking up. But even then, it's still not the way it should be. They still prefer the international books. But in those days, it was completely international books. It's very hard to get your book, for them to pick out from a bookshelf. And so what started, which I was very fortunate with, is that schools started buying my books en masse. Because they wanted Indian stories as opposed to international stories, say set in England in some, the Enid Blyton books which are set in the swamp zones of Wales and whatever. There was no connection.
Yes.
So here these were stories set in Lakshadweep, Andamans. So Lakshadweep was picked up a lot as a school reader.
Right.
And that's what really got it going.
Okay.
And then through that, we had got a little bit of success with in the bookshops. But the bookshops was the hardest things.
Okay.
And even today, all new writers face the same problem. Bookshops, it's not easy to get into them.
Great thing about your book is it's like a travelogue itself with an adventure. Because you can't keep it down, you have to finish it in one go. That is the power of your book. The way you said it now, for marketing, you approached schools, or maybe the schools approached you.
I approached a few schools, and then schools also came to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in a few schools, it must have been taken up as a
reader. Yeah.
Okay.
So more than 100 schools in India have used my books as readers.
Okay.
So, and they keep using. It overcomes the bookshop hurdle, which a lot of us face. So it goes directly to them, and now with the net and all that, and over the years now my name is known. In those, when you have one book, your name is not known.
Yes.
Two books, you're still nobody.
Yes.
You have 5-6 books over a period of time, and people get to see them. Now they know who I am, and every bookstore knows that these are his books, Deepak Dalal's books, and they stock them. And it takes a long while to get there.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. But it's finally the books have arrived, and now they're available everywhere.
Deepak, as you said, with writing for children, a series is generally a good way to go about it.
Absolutely.
But for a writer, it also becomes challenging because though the pet characters are the same, but still sometimes can get stuck for some particular stories because you might feel that they are being repeated in the previous thing.
Well, the way I do it differently is that I have different locations. I never use the same location.
Yes.
So location, wildlife, culture, people, Everything is different.
Yeah. So what is the process of your writing? Do you first visit the location, or is the story with you and then probably you go there and then try to figure out the things?
Okay, so I am a wildlife person. I'm part of the wildlife network. I know everybody in the wildlife sphere through my writing and over the years. And generally when I go to a location, I often look at a wildlife person. What is the research he's doing in this area? Like when I want to set a story in the Andamans, one of my friends whom I had known over the years, he went to the Andaman Islands as a wildlife researcher to work on a particular bird out there. Okay, and he spent 2-3 years out there, and there was this bird called it's a swiftlet. It's called the edible nest swiftlet. Edible because it secretes its nest, and because it secretes the entire nest, it's edible. And humans give it all kinds of powers and all that, and so they break the nest, and even before the eggs are hatched. So this has been going on for years, and the population of these birds have been declining. So he went there to work on these birds and help save them. Now he ventured through the forest. He did all the groundwork. So I went there and I said, Ravi, his name was Dr. Ravi Shankar, I want to write about these birds. I want to go around the Andamans. I want to set a story. So he had everything ready for me. With his people, I went into the different islands which you can never access, but he got the forest department clearances. So we went to places where no humans put their feet. We get to see the islands like nobody gets to see them. And he introduced me to the people who would help in a story. The entire wildlife setup of Andamans he knew. So I look for people like this, they help out. When I wrote my story on the snow leopard, I went with Dr. Raghu, who essentially has been studying snow leopards. He took me on this trek to search for snow leopards. So I choose a location, and I also go through people who are studying wildlife in the area. It makes all the difference. My story on tigers, Fateh Singh Rathore, who has passed away now, he and Valmik Thapar are the big names of tigers in India. I used to sit at Fateh's house every evening at his home in Ranthambore, and he used to give me stories about the tigers, and I used to walk in the forest. So this is how it comes about. So it's a combination of location, selecting a location, and also knowing the people who are studying wildlife there. If you don't know, then that wildlife angle doesn't come in. And these people open up places which it would have taken me years to crack and get into. And they've already been there, they've done that. These wildlife researchers, and through them I get a big leg up in my research. So that's how it is. There's no story in my mind when I go there. Because I don't know the place. I've only read about it. I really don't know. I go there and I spend a month, maybe 2 months, and it's during that time as I'm roaming that, you meet people, you talk to people, you see different places, you travel, and then things start coming to you. And so the story is organically born from that area. It's not something that was fixed in my mind before going there, because that doesn't work. What you perceive by just reading books is very different from actually experiencing it. And so and if you might have noticed, the stories seem like I've been there, and the fact is I've spent time there, and it's very authentic. So that's how it comes about.
So on every location you must have spent a lot of time.
Sometimes it is just one visit, sometimes it's 2 visits, sometimes it's 3 visits. Just back and forth I keep going as the story forms, and even the initial research is always minimum 3 to 4 weeks, because you don't know there's so many places to go, so many things to do, and people generally when they write a book about a place they spend months, so you need to spend a lot of time.
So for Andamans and Jarawa you have actually spent 2 months.
I made 2 visits out there, and the first visit I could not visit the Jarawa. I was stopped from visiting the Jarawa because nobody is allowed to go into the areas, and correctly so. But I said, sir, I want to write a book. I'm not going there to see them and waste time and all that. This is for a story. They said, no, you can't go in. So then a few connections always help. And so there was the commandant of National Defence Academy whom I knew when he was serving here. He became the commander-in-chief of the Andaman Islands. That was his next posting. And so I said, sir, can I come? I want to write this book. He says, Deepak, what do you want to know? So I listed these things. I need to do this. He said, come, I'll arrange it for you. And so all the doors that had been closed at that time opened up for me. So this is how research happens and it works. So I was lucky. I could get into and meet the Jarvashis. And it's an incredible experience. You go back in time because these people are hunter-gatherers.
Yes.
Human beings, if we've been around, say, for the last million years, except you take away the last 10,000 years since agriculture started, we were hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
So the majority of our history or existence on earth has been a hunter-gatherer, but we've forgotten this way of living life. And these people lived that life. All as our ancestors did all that time back. So it's just amazing seeing that and to perceive how we were at that time and actually seeing it happening in front of you. Oh, that was some experience. And I got to say that I was incredibly lucky.
So you write on location or do you just
No, I don't write
back?
anything on occasion. In fact, I'm lazy. I don't even take notes up. Nowadays, of course, you can just speak into your phone and that's how it is done. But yeah, you have to try and keep certain things because you can't carry all memories back. So, but I do try and take notes, but it's hard in certain conditions where you are, locations, and you just don't feel like doing it. But yeah, it's an important thing that you have to take notes. So sometimes I wait for 3-4 days of exploring, then I come to a place, I key it in, and then I send it on the internet to my own account, and it's there. Yeah, but it's important to do all that. And nothing stays in your head beyond a point because each memory replaces the older memory, and you get more and more memories, and so your first memory is gone. So you have to.
Talk something about the Sahyadri adventure because it has old Bombay setting, which is very interesting because today the Bombay that we see, Mumbai as we call it, it's totally upside down. And you have written about this particular, the Maidans. Can you just tell us about the old Bombay and its setting in relevance to the Bombay that is today?
Yeah, that's a good question. This whole thing began when I was a kid and my father was working in this place called Fort in Mumbai. I used to go to his office in the fort and I used to look around for a fort and there was no fort. And even if you tell a taxi driver today, Fort Lene ka, he'll take you to fort. I mean, what he believes is fort. It could be Church Gate, it could be VT Station. That whole area is called fort. And you ask the taxi driver, where's the fort? He'll say, keep quiet. You asked me to get you a fort, I brought you here. Nobody knows. And it's still called the fort, the fort area. And then when you do your research, you understand there was a fort there. It had 3 gates. All these forts are basically walls, right? And you have gates. And one was near a church. So what did they call that gate? The Church Gate. So that's how the name Church Gate came. So all this comes out as you do your research. The Maidans, for example, because the British were so scared in those days, and rightfully so. I mean, you could get attacked from anywhere. So you had to keep the area in front of the fort clean. No bush, nothing to hide from. So anything that grew, they'd chop it. And those open areas are today's Maidan. Oval Maidan, Azad Maidan, Cross Maidan, all come from these areas where purposely everything was cut from there, And the sea came all the way. I mean, this whole area of Churchgate, Wankhede Stadium down, it's all reclaimed land. In those days, it was, the sea came all the way right to where the Maidans are today and halfway across the Maidans. So a lot of Bombay has changed. We've changed a lot, but it was a beautiful city in those days. I mean, the trees. I mean, I have pictures when I show it to kids, and they say, I ask them, where is this? And everybody says, yeah, Goa, or this is, And I said, no, there's a marine drive. And they face, huh? I mean, that's the change. It was just palm trees and open areas and fields and gardens, and I want to bring that out through my books. So that's why I set the story, a lot of the story, back in Mumbai in those days. And of course, to couple it with, but the other thing with the Sahyadris, I love the Sahyadris. I'm from Pune now. I live in Pune, and the whole Siangad and the forts of Shivaji. I mean, Torna, Rajgarh. You get the endless number of forts out here with the valleys and the land is incredible. I mean, I go trekking. In fact, this is the monsoon season, so I'm there. In fact, I'm going there tomorrow. And it's, I mean, if you can, then you understand how Shivaji managed to get away with this guerrilla warfare. You can attack and you can retreat, and nobody can follow you. You can hide armies in just a fold or a curve in the, bend in the mountains, and then you come out, you attack, and you retreat, and you had all these lovely forts. And it was brilliant in those days. But that's your Sahyadris. Wild and beautiful. So I want to just link these things together, and that's how these books came out.
J.K. Rowling recently made a switch to write adult fiction.
That's right.
Are you ever going to do it like for?
No, I don't think so. My audience is kids, and I think J.K. Rowling had she reached out to people around the world. I think more than satisfied what she did with kids.
Yeah.
So she had a new challenge. I still have a long way to go. There are lots of kids I need to address more and more and read my stories. She'd done enough with kids, so she moved on. If her books were still getting off the ground, she'd write more and more of them. But the whole world knows about Harry Potter, so she had to move on.
Yes.
So that's what she did. And she's just brilliant at whatever she does. So even this writing is still selling well. Of course, nothing compared to Harry Potter. You only get these writers once in a generation, and she's one of them.
Yes.
So now, as I'm moving into the next stage of my writing, I'm writing a new series I've begun also.
Okay.
And this series is for younger children.
Okay.
And basically, we have for the first, when kids start reading, it's called picture books. Yes, it's a big picture, maybe one line. Small pictures, very little written stuff. Then you have the chapter books. In between them there's an in-between set of books, which have lots of pictures and lots of chapters.
Okay.
So this is what I've started, and it's stories about birds.
Yes.
And I've already published 2 with Penguin, and the 3rd one is coming out now. And in these books, I work a lot with artists because there are about 25 to 30 illustrations per book.
Oh.
And the idea is that children know about crows, pigeons, sparrows, kites, birds found in your cities.
Yes.
But you don't know about you know about peacocks, of course. You don't know about the cranes, about the storks, about the ibises, about the orioles. Yes. There's such a wonderful range of birds. That 1,200 birds found in India.
Yes.
And so, bahut acha pakshi hai, but we don't know what it is,
Yeah.
So here the idea was, if birds are characters, maybe children would learn.
Yes.
And if the illustrations are great, then they can identify.
Yeah.
So this is a new series which is on the way.
Okay.
So it's all series based. We started with series. First was this original Vikramaditya series. Now it's the second series.
Okay.
And the Vikramaditya series itself, now I'm doing a book in which Vikram has grown up.
Okay.
And he's become a teacher. It's about the kids he's teaching to.
Okay.
And their adventures.
Wow.
So it's there's a progression happening there also.
So is there an end to that series, or are you going to recreate it again?
No, there might be more books than that.
Okay.
It's just that this is something which I wanted to. I want to write about children who are underprivileged.
Okay.
So there's a lot of these organizations like Teach for India and a few others that actually work with this. They take young people who have had a great education from the best of schools and colleges, and they give them a 2-year fellowship, and they put them in municipal schools.
Right.
And so here talking directly with underprivileged kids. And I wanted the story not always of our kids. I mean the people who are privileged kids who go to school, but I wanted a story about these underprivileged kids. So one way of doing it was making Vikram the teacher.
Yes.
And writing the story about the kids he's educating.
Yes.
And their problems and their lives and their hopes and their aspirations. So it's an experimental book which is moving away from regular kids who I normally write about.
So you're trying to touch upon more cross section of the
readers. Yes. And they're wonderful kids. So I want to write about them.
Yeah.
So that's why it's just a way of reaching out and writing stories about different kids, but still maintaining that series. Right. In the sense that the Vikramaditya series.
Yeah. Any other locations in India that you want to explore?
Oh yeah, there's stories on elephants I want to write in the southern forests of Wayanad and Mudumalai and Bandipur. And I've actually gone there 2-3 times. I've not yet got the story. I have to go back and get it. On the Brahmaputra, I've always wanted to write a story. This magnificent river of India, which unfortunately the Chinese might put a dam on. But there's so many locations like that. India is endless. The northeast, the Arunachal Pradesh. Yes. But I'm not getting any younger, so so I don't know how many I'll manage to write, and because it's very hard also researching these stories. Some of them. Yes. You have to go into tough locations with no facilities and camping out, and in the storms and in the cold. So let's see what I can manage and what I can do.
Yes. So there's a lot of hardships or an your own adventure that you have to go through.
Which was much easier when I was younger, and it's not. It gets a little tougher as you get older,
Yeah.
So, I mean, so I have to be realistic about it. Yes, there will be a few more books, but I don't know how many. But this current series I'm working on for younger kids, that is actually taking off. That could lead to 25, 30 books.
Oh.
So, I mean, I am actually concentrating more on that, and they'll come, but slower.
Yes. Any message that you want to give our readers or the young readers of your stories?
Today, kids are essentially born in cities. They live their lives in cities, and when they travel to other cities. They have lost touch with the land. They've lost touch with nature, and I think it's rather unfortunate, because there's so much beyond your cities, and the wild teaches you so much, and it can inspire you, it can move you, and we are losing our wildlife in a big way. I mean, if you're sitting in a city and somebody tells you that the number of leopards are decreasing, or the lions are going off, or these birds are getting extinct, you have no connection to these creatures because you've never gone there, you've never seen them in the wild. So to you, why do you need to save them?
Yeah.
But the more you go into these places and you see these creatures in their natural habitat, the more you will understand their lives, the more you will sympathize, and you'll get compassionate with them, and you'll want a reason to save them. So if we want our kids in the future to save and look after wildlife, then I believe they have to go there. Go there, see it. Go, travel, learn about your country, travel out, see wildlife, see the forests, and then you'll understand why we need to preserve them. So that's my message. Please travel out of your cities. Understand your wildlife, understand your forests, understand the beauty and the value of these things. And please work towards saving them. And that's what my story is all about, to connect them with these wilderness areas, and with the animals from there, and with the people from there.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the message. Move out of your cities.
Yes. So that's the message from Deepak for our young listeners. Move out of your cities. Move out of your comfort zone and try to embrace the nature and the unknown, to let some adventure seep into your life. Thank you, Deepak, for joining us for this freewheeling conversation. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you, Gaurav. Pleasure to be here.
So listeners, you were listening to the second and final part of an interview with Deepak Dalal, a children's book writer. Interviewer was Gaurav Shimpi. Do tune in next Wednesday, same time. We will be back with something new and interesting. Until then, thanks for listening, and please stand by us for our next program which follows shortly.